This is KM Wyland, and you are listening to the 259th episode of the Helping Writers Become Authors podcast. Would you like a free copy of my Crusades-era historical, Behold the Dawn? For the next 2 weeks only, the book is available for free via storycartel.com in exchange for your honest review. You'll also be eligible to win new e-readers, gift cards, and print books, courtesy of Story Cartel, just by downloading the book. Behold the Dawn was my second published novel, and it maintains a special place in my heart. Like Charles Dickens and his David Copperfield, I have to admit it's a bit of a favorite child. So, if you like blood and thunder, medieval battles, soul-wrenching secrets in search of redemption, snarky sidekicks, and epic love stories, here's your chance. You can find the deal on my homepage at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. The latest post in the video series on my blog is, are you overlooking this easy way to make your story more interesting? It uses an example from Christine Jeff's Sunshine Cleaning to show how you can use your character's job to make your story more interesting. You can find that post on my site. And now, I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast entitled Most Common Writing Mistakes, Part 33, Telling Important Scenes Instead of Showing. Show, don't tell, is arguably one of the most important principles of writing fiction. It's the foundation of all dramatic storytelling. Telling may get the bones of a scene across, but showing is what brings it to life. So, it should come as no surprise that failing to show important scenes in your story is a major writing mistake. The problem is that show, don't tell can be a tricky paradigm for writers to get their heads around. What the heck does show, don't tell mean anyhow? It is confusing, largely because all of fiction is telling to one degree or another. There's a reason we don't call ourselves story showers. The major difference between telling and showing is that telling is summarizing and showing is dramatizing. Consider a basic example of telling or summarizing. Jakarta attended Mrs. Beasley's tea party. And compare that to showing and dramatizing. Jakarta knocked on the door to Mrs. Beasley's ornate, if somewhat decrepit, Victorian. The maid let her in and curtsied. "Right this way, miss." Jakarta managed to smile and tiptoed down the musty hall and into a gorgeous sunroom. Tea for two in Wedgwood china was set on a lace-covered table. Jakarta bit her lip. Should she stick out her pinky when she drank? Right off the bat, we see that showing involves more length and more detail than telling. Showing is all about providing the reader with a full-color, meticulous representation of what's happening. Showing lets readers in on what the character is, seeing, touching, smelling, tasting, hearing, feeling, thinking, doing, and saying. The works, baby, the works. 80 to 90% of your book will be showing in one form or another, whether it's of scenes in which your character is taking physical action, or scenes in which his internal narrative is offering a real-time account of his inner emotions and thoughts. That means, of course, that the rest of your book can and should contain telling. Not every scene or moment in your story will be fascinating enough or important enough to warrant full-on dramatization, unless, of course, you're Victor Hugo. Telling is a vital tool for skipping boring, repetitious, or ancillary segments of your story. What telling is not appropriate for is any scene that is interesting or important to your plot. So how do you know when a scene is important enough to warrant full-on showing? Consider the following checklist. The scene fascinates you. If it fascinates you, just might fascinate your readers too. The scene moves the plot forward. If the story wouldn't work without it, it probably deserves to be dramatized. The scene is emotional for your character. If your character is about to experience something life-changing or thought-provoking, readers need to experience it right along with him. On the other hand, you know you may be dealing with one of your story's necessary telling scenes if it fulfills any of the following. The scene bores you. If it bores you, then, well, you know. The scene is nothing but necessary filler. If it's necessary to the story only to create a basic causal link, such as the character driving from his house to his workplace, then you can probably safely summarize it. And finally, the scene is repetitious. If the scene is just a variation of Brendan told the fish story again, then readers aren't likely to need or want to rehear every detail. Learning to become a great writer is largely a matter of learning how to appropriately show and tell. If you can master the art of showing instead of telling important scenes, you're halfway to greatness already. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, you can visit my website at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. And be sure to check back again next week.